The Burrows of Berea is a conversational podcast. We study the Bible and we talk about it.
Not all of us are of the same faith, and one of us doesn't actually have a faith.
And that's wonderful. We all love one another, and we're going to continue to talk about these things.
The things we believe in and the things we believe about what we read in the Bible. Not all of these are necessarily true. Some of it is opinion and speculation. Thank you for
listening and speculating with us.
There you go. That was good. Yes.
You are listening to the Burrows of Berea.
Side studies.
Well, welcome back to the Burrows of Berea Side Studies. This is Sarita.
That was beautiful.
Thanks.
Absolutely
This is Sarita the Edge. Edgerton. I guess I have a name now. And to my left is Rick O.G. Welch.
Peace.
The Podfather.
I don't know how to do the OG.
Podfather.
I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse.
I'm going to make you an offer you can't
I'm
remember.
going to make you a podcast you can't refuse.
Yeah, that's awesome right there. That's a tagline.
There it is.
Patent it right there.
Tag.
Copyright. No patent. Just copyright.
I'm going to make you a podcast you can't refuse.
That's right.
That's awesome. I like it.
And across from me, that sultry voice you hear is Charlton Rick Carter the second.
Number 2.
Number
He's actually
two.
the third, but
Is he the
Yes.
third?
Yes.
Sorry, he's the third, but he's Rick the second
I'm a
here.
turd either
he's
way.
the electric reckoning.
The electric Rickler. And behind the glass is Andy Rocketman Bishop.
Cow.
Big cow.
Cow.
Oh, boy.
All right.
I'm ready for this one.
Oh, yeah.
I like this study.
I told my suitcases that we weren't going to go on vacation this year.
Okay.
Now I'm dealing with some emotional baggage.
Oh,
I didn't
There
tell
it
a
is.
joke in the last one, so I had to tell a joke in this one.
Emotional package.
My husband
I have a joke at the end of this one.
My husband said that he interviewed a guy named Patrick who used to work at the crematorium.
Uh-huh.
He said he had to work hard to earn that paycheck.
Oh.
oh, my gosh.
Is that because rigor mortis set in?
Oh, earn that paycheck. Yeah. Uh-huh. All right.
Well, I was kind of leaning towards the hard part, but
Okay.
that's what she said.
Right in my mind. I wasn't going to do it, though.
Again,
Sorry.
I
It was
am
right there.
still the only female
You're right.
Yes,
in
no,
the
no.
building,
Terrible.
That was
even with
terrible.
the dogs. Oh, wait, is she a girl?
No, all these are boys.
I am the only female. Jesus be with me.
Yeah.
All right. So if you listen to part 1 of this particular topic, the I am statements of Jesus, you heard us talk about several of them. When Jesus gives himself titles or names, I think we should probably pay attention to how he describes himself, those characteristics that he wanted people of his time to know. And then we can glean some wisdom in our day from these characteristics. Andy, would you please remind us of the I am statements that we have already covered thus far?
I would be happy to, Sarita.
Thanks.
I am the bread of life, the light of the world, the door, the good shepherd, and I am the resurrection and the life.
Which I think we all agreed was our favorite.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Thanks, Andy.
You're welcome.
So let's finish this today. The next 2 occur during the Last Supper interlude, and I don't know, before researching this, that I ever thought about it. Where was he for the first ones, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that we've done so far? Where was he? Well, he was out and about in the world. Here, he was at the Last Supper. And I guess I just had never put that together until I studied this. This is the last real teaching that Jesus would have with his disciples. The 6th one that Jesus speaks is my favorite.
Ah.
I am the way, the truth, and the life. This is my favorite, and it's the motto of my homeschool, or the name of my homeschool is Messiah Academy, because all the letters are the first initials of all of my whole family: Michael, Ella, Sarita, Summy, Izzy, AJ, Homeschool Academy.
Wow.
Yeah,
How
cool.
neat is that?
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
And then our motto verse is this verse: I am the way, the truth, and the life, that we're going to read here in a little bit. And I have it done in Latin.
Really? That's so cool.
All right, so here's a little background on the scripture that the OG Rick is going to read, because context, as we proclaim on this podcast, is very important. Jesus has just washed the disciples' feet. He has told them about the one who would betray him. He gave him some bread and told them. He told about Peter's denial after Peter vehemently denies that he's going to deny him.
Mm-hmm.
And he is now comforting them after giving them this bad news. He said, I got a good news, bad news situation. He gave them the bad news first. He does this intimate thing of washing their feet. Has anybody ever done that before? Wash somebody's feet?
I have.
We did it in Nicaragua. It was quite possibly one of the most meaningful things I've ever done, other than give birth and marry my husband, was washing these dusty feet in this village. The women were crying, the men were crying, and people were lined up to be a part of it. And then when we were done, they sat us down. They washed our feet.
Oh.
It was I'm just speechless, which, if you know me, is rare.
Yeah.
So it was just a moment that I'll never forget. I think if I get Alzheimer's, I'll remember that moment. It was precious.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
And to think of the creator of the universe, my savior of my soul, wash someone's feet. It always it chokes me up. Because he means so much to me, and I want to wash his feet. I want to throw myself down at his feet.
Yeah.
And if I had been in that room, he would have washed
It's
my
like
feet.
you feel like Peter. If you're going to wash my feet, just wash all of me.
Yeah,
exactly.
Scrub me from head to toe.
I love you so much to do that, but he didn't, you don't understand, Peter. You don't understand what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that makes it even harder. Like, it's like, oh man, it's precious. You're right.
All right, Rick OG, would you give us John 14, 1-7?
Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there you may be also. And where I go, you know, and the way you know. Thomas said to him, Lord, we do not know where you are going, and how can we know the way? Jesus said to him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you had known me, you would have known my Father also. And from now on, you know him and have seen him.
So this is explosive.
Yes, it is.
This teaching is the most controversial thing that Jesus has said. It shortly follows one of the most explosive things he had ever done, raising Lazarus from the dead in front of everyone. So he does this explosive thing for which they're plotting to kill him. They ramp it up into fifth gear. For those of you who don't know how to drive a stick shift, they put the pedal to the metal. And then he says this explosive thing to his disciples. I mean, after doing the most humble thing that he could do, which was washing their feet. I mean, so let's compare what he says with some modern day sayings.
If you've seen me, you've seen the Father.
I am.
And the Father washed your feet.
That's pretty brave.
That's pretty, for those of us who are Christians, that is soul touching.
It
It's
rips your heart apart. It's incredible.
does. I mean,
It does.
all right, Andy, go.
Jesus, I am the way, the world. There are many ways to get to heaven. It is a mountain that has many sides to climb up to attain heaven.
All right, so what I'm taking is I'm taking apart the statement that Jesus made and then comparing it with what the world says. There are many ways to get to heaven. I can be Islamic. I can be an atheist. There may not be a heaven. I can be Jewish. I can be whatever the religion is. I can be that. There's many mountains, many sides of that mountain to climb up, but we're all going to the same place.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what Jesus said.
Yeah.
I am the way.
I like
All
how
right.
you put that because do you remember that the little farmer toy, Fisher Price toy, where you'd pull the thing and it's like the coyote says.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Mine never had a coyote on it, though. It was the sheep says, "Bah."
You didn't have a coyote?
I didn't have a coyote on
It
mine.
yipped.
I got
Rick-
ripped. I got ripped off, man.
Rick had a special one that was all predators.
Yeah. The snake says.
Now, I
No,
did
it
have a
doesn't say
snake
that.
on mine.
I didn't.
No, he was making that one up.
Yeah.
No, but I had a snake on
They
mine.
had.
Oh, you
Well,
did?
they had different versions.
Yeah. Oh.
I had the coyote. So
Mine
the way
was
that you
blue.
said it, like Jesus says, "I am the way," but then the world says, it says what it says, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, Rick Cotta.
Jesus, I am the truth. The world, I speak my truth. There is no absolute truth. Don't impose your truth on me.
So Jesus says, "I am the life," but the world says, "I can live my life in any way I choose. This is the only life I have. After this, I just cease to exist."
So, can y'all see how bold these statements are, even today?
Yeah, it's really it's gonna drive home who Jesus is, one way or the other.
Well, these statements were also bold in his time as well. The Jews, most of them, didn't believe Jesus to be the Christ, the Messiah. Some of them did. His disciples were Jewish, so they believed.
Right.
But most of them did not believe Jesus to be the Christ, the Messiah. That's what Christ means, is Messiah. His claims would have been considered outrageous. And actually, they still are. Let's look at what he is saying. Andy, would you read The Way?
I would. Yeah, it's great. The man is like, I am an aspect of God. I am God and an aspect of God. That is quite the claim.
It's a bold statement.
It's a bold statement.
It's bold.
All right. Matthew 7:13 through 14.
That's what I call my son-in-law, Matthew.
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 It's fun it's a fun, chewy word. Enter by the narrow gate. For wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and there are many who go by it. Because narrow is the gate and difficult is the way which leads to life, and there are few who find it. I
Rick.
do my best.
Rick, OG, would you tell us what that extremely fascinatingly interesting book, Thayer's Greek Lexicon,
Yeah.
I'm sorry I fell asleep, says about the phrase, the way?
It's actually, if you're a Bible nerd, that's a great lexicon. It's lots of fun. If you're not,
If you need to fall asleep,
Your
This
results
is your
may
book.
vary.
yeah. So the way that we read "the way" in the Greek lexicon, the way it's translated, it's a metaphorical phrase. "I am the way by which one passes."
does that make anyone else think of Gandalf in Lord of the Rings?
You-
None shall pass.
You shall not pass. I love that one.
Yes. Or
Sir Ian McKellen.
Yes.
the Black Knight from Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anybody?
I'll
Just
bite
me?
your ankles off.
It's only a
Just
flesh
me.
wound.
It's yeah.
Anyway, oh well, I digress. Here, Jesus alludes to two different ways, going back to what Andy read in Matthew. One that leads to hell and destruction. A whole lot of people are going this way. It says, wide is the gate and broad is the way. So, a lot of people are going that way. It's easy. It feels right. Everybody else is doing it. Think a school of fish. We're all just kind of swimming, keep swimming, keep swimming. The other way is much more difficult, and few will actually go down that because it is so hard. But if you do, it leads to Rick the second.
The life. John 1:4. In him, Jesus, was life, and the life was the light of men. Genesis 2:7. And the Lord God formed the man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. The man became a living being.
I know that I moved ahead in the way, the truth, and the life. I wanted to go to the life next. So I went ahead in the verse a little bit, but I wrote this, so I claim poetic license.
Yeah.
I can do this.
When you write it, that's the joy, right? You can do whatever
That's
you
right.
want.
I
Yep.
digress. Jesus was present at the beginning of life. God breathed his very life into mankind. We carry the pneuma in our lungs. Rick, OG, what does old Merriam-Webster say about pneuma?
Pneuma. The first one is soul or spirit, and the second definition is an invisible liquid or vapor held to travel throughout the body and to be necessary to and associated with life.
That's a fun word. That's new. I like that.
Yeah, pneuma.
That's where we get pneumonia.
That's right. Pneumonia.
Pneumonia comes
I
from pneuma.
noted but I thought that might have been a coincidence because of how different the meanings are.
And Johnny
But it
Mnemonic.
has to do with your breath.
Okay, there you go.
And he breathed his pneuma, he breathed that breath into us, that life. Life is mentioned in 2 I am statements. I have said it before, and thus you should pay attention. When something is repeated, especially by our Lord and Savior, that you should pay attention. Jesus has come to give us life, and life more abundant than anything we can imagine. Without God's pneuma, we have no life. And the last one, Andy?
The truth according to Vine's complete expository dictionary is aletheia. Objectively signifies the reality lying at the basis of an appearance, the manifested, veritable essence of a matter. The word has an absolute force. In John 14:6.
The word truth here is the same word used in John 17:17. Rick, number 2, can you read that?
May I submit we should just always call him Rick 3?
Rick 3?
And Rick 2 can be like one of those things people are like, who's Rick 2?
There you
Yeah.
go. Okay, done. Rick the third, go.
All right. John 17:17. Sanctify them with your truth. Your word is truth.
All right. So the word truth, when he says, I am the truth, sanctify them by your truth. Little context here in John 17:17. He's praying for us. He's
Yes.
praying for his disciples. He's praying for his followers. In the garden, he's about to be murdered. And he prays,
Yeah.
sanctify them
Yeah.
by me. Because your word, me, is truth. I am.
Yeah. Other sheep I have. Yeah.
Your word, I am your word,
Mm-hmm.
and I am the truth. I mean, English is so boring.
It is so
sometimes.
boring.
I mean, just what he's saying here in the Greek is beautiful. I mean, all right. In John 18:37-38, he says to Pilate,
I have come into the world that I should bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth hears my voice. And Pilate said to him, what is truth? What is truth?
what is truth?
How-
You're looking at
the
him.
way we inflect that. Exactly. It was staring him right in the face. But he says, what is truth? Or what is truth? Or,
In most cases, that's exactly what was happening. Everybody was standing in front of everything they were asking for and could not see it.
yeah, true. It's very true.
Jesus prays himself, the truth, as sanctification, which, for those of you who don't know, that means a setting apart over his disciples and us, right before he is betrayed and taken away. Then he goes on to say, your word is truth. Basically, I am that I am. This is amazing. With this I am statement, Jesus makes himself out to be one of 3 things. He is either a lunatic, because who would be crazy enough to say this stuff? It's going to cause him to die. They're going to put him to death for saying this stuff. So he's either a lunatic, he's a liar, didn't really put any explanation there, or he is the Lord.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you have to come to those conclusions, and there's other conclusions you come to at the baseline. It's if a man stands in front of you and looks at you and says, I am God, I am the Father and I are one. The only way you're going to make it to the Father is through me. That's not only a bold statement, but that's a very clarifying statement. He's saying, I'm bananas, or
Yeah,
I
it's true.
am that person,
Or I'm lying.
or I'm just trying to get your money, or I'm trying to do something else, whatever it might be, a charlatan, right?
I want fame.
We used to be in this band, and it was like people either liked us or they hated us or they thought we were okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Right.
that's a little obtuse, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some it's defined. You're defined. You're defined by who is listening to you. And that's what you have with Jesus too. You have some that didn't believe and some that did. And some it radically changed their lives, and we did that study and showed what happened to all the disciples who followed after him. They did exactly what he did and ended very similarly. And it continued on down through the ages.
So sometimes I like to imagine that I am a disciple. I'm a female, so I don't really get
There's
to
no way I
have
could
that
do that.
privilege. But
He had
So-
female disciples.
I know, but like the ones that are mentioned by name and have books that they wrote
Oh, okay.
in the Bible.
Like Mary Magdalene? It's just not in their Bible.
Depends on,
Matthew.
version of Bible.
Yeah.
Mark.
I know,
well,
I gotcha.
Matthew, John.
Mark wasn't
I know.
yeah.
I know.
Neither was Luke.
Peter. Okay, one of those guys.
Gotcha.
So he's saying these things. They're hearing him. We're reading this. So we have to try to put ourselves in their shoes. And I'm going off script here a little bit.
That's
but
good.
we have to kind of put ourselves in those shoes. And I like to think about that. So they hear him say these things. And of course, you got Thomas who asks the questions. I mean, we like to say, oh, he asked the dumbest questions. But literally, we would have been asking those same questions. Like, what are you really?
Yeah,
what are you
good
talking
old
about?
doubting Thomas.
We don't know where you're going.
Where's his
What are you
twin
talking
at?
about?
Where's his
I
twin?
know,
Is his
poor
twin
Didymus.
smarter?
I don't know. Anyway, so they heard this. But in the context of everything, they had seen the miracles. They had walked with him. A couple of them had been up on the mountain and had that Mount of Transfiguration moment, right? They had seen things. They had heard things. What they're about to go through, and then they're going to see him again. I wonder if this comes back to mind. He was who he said he was. He was God.
Mhm.
Oh, my word. I mean,
That's what Thomas does. As soon as he touches them, he goes, "My Lord and my God."
but he had to touch him.
That's
The
right.
other ones didn't necessarily have to touch him. They were like getting it. But they all saw him resurrected. A lot of people saw him resurrected. But I wonder if they went back to the statement and like, he was bold enough to say it. He said it. He didn't say, I am a way. He said, I am the way. The only way.
It's interesting. Whenever
I am not a life. I am
Right.
the life.
The life.
And I am the truth.
Right. Very definitive. And we keep talking about The Chosen, but I just can't help it. The episode 8 of season 3, Sarita, when he tells all of these, like this mixed crowd of Gentiles and Jew alike, and he looks at him and he was like, "You have to come through me to get to the Father." It felt so disjointed when he did it.
So weird.
It felt like it was out of place, but in the scriptures, it's correct.
Yes.
That's what he's telling them. He's saying it to him, and they're just like,
Almost in that moment, you could see that they have no idea.
yeah,
No clue.
right. And then he feeds them.
Yes.
And then later on, like you did in that previous study, they come back to him later, but he's like, "You're only here because you want food.
Yeah.
I'm the food. I am the bread."
And they don't get it until he shows up in that locked room.
Locked
They
room.
don't get it. They're in the upper room together after
Oh,
his
yeah,
death.
yeah.
He doesn't get it. They don't get it until he shows up in that room out of nowhere.
I thought you were talking about like escape room or something.
Oh, yeah.
Is there a new Christian escape room?
That would be awesome.
Jesus comes in like, how did that happen?
The Last Supper
Yeah.
themed.
Yep.
I'm sorry, Rick, what were you saying?
Again, I'm giddy with excitement of an upcoming episode.
Y'all got to listen to this one because it's going to be fueled.
We'll explain
Yeah.
about what they can see and how they can't see.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about what they're missing and what it takes to see what they needed to see
Yep.
and the perspectives.
It really stands true today, too.
I'm excited about it,
It
but
stands true. It's really cool.
yes,
All right, so we're going to come to the last of the traditional 7. Rick, the third?
I am the vine.
I am the branch.
Hey, Andy, you want to take this whole paragraph for me?
No.
I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. And this is from John 15, 1-9. Verse 2 said, every branch in me does not bear fruit, he takes away, and every branch that bears fruit, he prunes, and it may bear more fruit. You are already clean because of the word which I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit for itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you, unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me, and I in him, bears much fruit, for without me you can do nothing. If anyone does not abide in me, he cast out as a branch that is withered, and they gather them and throw them into the fire, and they are burned. If you abide in me, and my words abide in you, you will ask what you desire, and it shall be done for you. By this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, so you will be my disciples.
All right, so to continue with the context, Jesus and his disciples are in the upper room having Passover, or what we call the Last Supper. They didn't call it the Last Supper. I don't know that they understood that it was going to be their Last Supper with him. Now, Jesus did.
I think Da Vinci called it the Last Supper, actually.
I know.
He's the one that titled it.
But what's
he
what we
painted
call it today.
Yeah, Yeah.
And there's that painting you can go look at,
that's right.
and many very badly copies, replicas done of it. Ugh. So Judas has been possessed and gone to do what he is going to do. The 11 of them plus Jesus are left. So think about the intimacy that is intimated here. Jesus is giving them their final lesson. Just them, not the betrayer, but the ones who would follow him even unto death. He calls himself the vine, or the true vine, and he calls God the vine dresser. God walks through his vineyard, his people, and seeks to prune out anything that is rotten, dead, and has quit bearing any fruit. If we, his people, stay connected to him, we will bear much fruit. If we aren't connected to Jesus, we will wither and die. This is clear Old Testament languages, and the disciples knew that. Jesus spoke of vineyards. God in the Old Testament spoke of vines as a symbol for Israel. They were almost always to speak of success or consequently failure. Andy, would you read Proverbs 31:16?
She considers a field and buys it. From her earnings, she plants a vineyard.
Also, this is from Amos 9:14. I will restore the captivity of my people Israel, and they will rebuild the ruined cities and live in them. They will also plant vineyards and drink their wine, and make gardens and eat their fruit.
From Isaiah 61:5, strangers will stand and pasture your flocks, and the foreigners will be your farmers and your vine dressers.
And so I've already admitted that, again, I don't know much about farming. I really literally cannot grow anything green. I kill it. Don't ever give me a plant. That's a lie. Please give me a plastic one or none at all. I can grow children, but plants, nope, can't do it. My mom used to give me, I promise you, you can't kill this one. It would be dead the next time she came to visit. What did you do to it? I don't know. I cannot do it. I do know from high school biology that the vines spoken of here grow grapes. Grapes make wine. Many vineyards will graft one type of grape into another vine of grapes to create a new species of grapes. Okay? Since I'm not Jewish, I am not of the original vine. Now, I got like 2% some kind of Jewish in me, but I'm not of the original vine. I have been grafted in. I have become a part of the vineyard as a new type of fruit. You, Rick, other Rick, have been grafted into this vine as well. And we must abide in the vine dresser, the one who controls the vineyard. Aren't you glad it isn't me? I would have killed that vine so long ago. Judas, an apostate, was not abiding in him. He was going to betray Jesus. He would be burned up. The others, true believers, were abiding in Jesus, staying true to him, and would go on to plant many vineyards and produce much fruit. If you are a believer in Jesus Christ, then you are that fruit. Isn't that amazing to think? We are the fruit of the disciples if you go all the way back?
Yes.
Wow.
None of this comes unless all of that happened.
Right.
It had to come from somewhere.
Right. Rick, OG, what does the vine dresser do to vines that aren't producing much fruit?
He prunes them, he trims them up, cuts off the dead weight, then that branch can produce good fruit.
So what does that pruning look like? What does that pruning look like in our lives?
I was thinking about this. You know, I've had situations where a person needed to be cut away from me because of what it was doing to me and how it was stopping me from my, following my faith the way that I knew that I should be. I could feel it in my spirit. I knew I wasn't going the right way. And so I had to end a relationship in order to stop that from happening. I used to have a problem with alcohol, a long time ago, back in my 20s. And
Did you know you were getting pruned?
I did. No. I didn't know that I was getting pruned. I did have a wife that was telling me she wasn't going to be with me if I continued. And so my family meant more to me than that. And so I stopped completely. But I wasn't just drinking occasionally. I was drinking myself to oblivion quite often. And that's a very expensive habit when you have a family with a wife that stays at home and 3 kids. So yeah, I had that. But also, once that happened, my clarity came back to me, my sobriety. And I was able to go back to the Word. And then I began to produce fruit again in my life, whereas before I'd pretty much stopped. So that's how I see it.
So, if you've listened to my testimony that I've shared here, I had to be pruned, and I didn't really understand what that was. I didn't understand because, again, I'm not a farmer. I can't keep things alive. I don't know that you have to pick things off and, that kind of stuff. But I didn't realize when I was going through the post-abortion healing that the Lord was cutting away all of that rotten stuff, all of that dead stuff, so that I didn't want children at the time, but I produced that kind of fruit, human fruit, little baby fruits, who are all right now walking with the Lord. Yeah. That was my ultimate goal. They're walking with the Lord. Maybe they won't in the future, but for right now. But if he hadn't cut away that dead ickiness, my hurt from abortion, the pain that I felt, the destruction, the alcohol, the destruction that I was living, I might not have produced that fruit. My husband said that last night to my daughter. She's got this big interview, and he was like, if your mom hadn't gone through that, you might not be here.
That's right.
But he had to cut that away. There have been times that we had to leave a church because we weren't producing fruit there. I'm not saying that church wasn't producing fruit. We weren't producing fruit there.
You have to be very aware of what's going on.
We were the
in your
wrong
life,
finger on the
your own
wrong
heart.
hand. Rick the third, have you ever had any pruning?
No, he's pretty much been perfect his whole life.
All life? Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Andy?
not
I'm
even.
just messing with you, buddy.
Also with the perfection, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
We knew that. Even Andy.
My goodness gracious.
Had a lot of pruning in my life.
Sure.
In different areas. The sad part is trying to prune out like the people that you really care about and that you really love. Having to prune them off is kind of the hardest part to ever do.
Well, it's real difficult to decide when your ability to help someone does not outweigh their ability to disrupt your life and hurt you.
And be
that
toxic, yeah.
is incredibly difficult math.
It is.
There
That's an algebra equation.
was somebody in
Yeah,
my,
I think it's more like calculus or
Quadratic equation.
no, more,
More?
harder.
it's so interesting. There was somebody in my life that ultimately had to be pruned out. And usually when you prune something, it's never a good, easy thing. In the essence of pruning something, you have to cut it off. And it's damaging to the vine. Because even at that moment, after it's pruned, it doesn't just naturally heal itself to look like the rest of the vine. It goes through a process in order to heal itself.
And it's vulnerable at that moment.
That part of it is. But the part that you cut off, you don't never know whether or not what condition it'll end up in. In most cases, it can die off. In certain cases of somebody that's a much better green thumb than I am, and maybe Sarita is, can take that piece that's been cut off and they can transplant it and make something else out of it that produces fruit. But in certain cases, if that piece that's been cut off is not necessarily lack of a better word, maybe worthy to be supplanted, then it just dies. And to know that, at least in my life, somebody that got pruned out of my life, sadly, is not here anymore because they decided to continue down a path that ultimately led to them not being here anymore. Now, what's interesting is knowing that even though through that person's loss, that somebody else was affected by them, that now is looking at the Lord in their life that possibly wouldn't have done it before. So you see,
The Lord can make all things,
it really
use
turns
all
it
things
around.
for good. For those who,
Sorry to sidetrack so long.
no, that's
I know.
good. I
know
love that.
Something else that I was thinking about is, to remember that it's the Father that's the vine dresser. A lot of times, the things like I said, I had to cut a person off or whatever, because I knew God was telling me what was happening. I could feel that. It didn't measure up against His word or whatever it was. But I've also had that with doctrine. I've had doctrines that I was indoctrinated with that slowly, through the word and through prayer and through time, began to come in question and forced myself to bear fruit. The changing of the belief isn't just, I'm thinking of it differently. Your life actually changes and you live a different way And that's part of the fruit that's being bared. Like I would see other people become saved when, like, I would lead people to Christ, after all this happened. And then I start speaking in this new manner, or I start acting in this new manner. People come up to me and they're like, what is this that you're talking about? I want to know more. And then to be able to share with them and then watch them ask for salvation, and it's like, that's evidence that what he's done is it's happening. I'm being shaped by the word, but it's affecting a person outside of me. And I'm watching that fruit being bared right in front of me, growing right in front of me.
So what happens, though, if we don't stick close to the heavenly vine dresser? Rick, you read it in Isaiah. Rick, this third. What do you read it in Isaiah? What was that? Who becomes the vine dresser?
Foreigners.
Not God. Somebody's going to dress your vine. Is it God or people? And who can take better care of the creation than the Creator?
Mm-hmm.
Because man ain't doing a great job taking care of the creation.
Yeah.
That was our dominion to be given. We're not doing a great job with it. So I don't want some other man to be in charge of my vineyard.
Yeah. I don't know how to answer that. I don't know how to take care of all this place, so I know that.
All right, so what's the point?
I don't know how to fix it.
Stick with the vine dresser, the Holy One, so you can get a smooth Merlot or Cabernet. If you don't, you might end up at Boone's Farm.
The Mad Dog 2020.
I remember that from college. All right, so we have come to the end of the traditional I am statements, though I think there is one more that Jesus says, and he says it 3 times, and in each time he says it has a different reaction. Andy, would you please read John chapter 4, verses 25 and 26?
The woman said, I know that Messiah is coming, who is called Christ. When he comes, he will tell us all things. Jesus said to her, I who speak to you am he.
All right. So according to my MacArthur Study Bible, the actual Greek doesn't say I am he, but just I am.
Mm-hmm.
This is again expressed in John 8:58. Rick the third, would you do the honors here?
John 8:58. Jesus said to them, Most assuredly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I
Oh,
am.
yeah. They did not like
All
that
right. So the
statement.
first one was to the Samaritan woman at the well.
Right.
Love that story again. Closely relate to that lady.
Yeah. You're not going to be worshiping on a mountain anymore.
Nope.
The
I am.
chosen did it when Jesus was there in the temple, and he said, I am the law of Moses.
Yes.
Then to the Sanhedrin, he says, they say, are you better than Abraham, Jacob, our fathers? And he says, most assuredly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
What did he just say? I mean,
And they picked up rocks immediately.
yes.
Like they were going to
Oh,
stone
really?
him right on the spot when he said it.
I just said
And
that.
it
It
is
so
explosive.
infuriated the Jews that they were going to stone Jesus, but he disappeared from their
Oh,
midst.
sorry. I jumped so far ahead, but it was exciting.
No, it's exciting.
Yeah.
He literally pulled a disappearing act.
Yeah.
He was there, and
just
then he
poofed.
wasn't.
Yeah. I wonder if they're
the
going to do
Holy
it to where he
Ghost.
just like
Hallelujah.
stares him down and walks right through it,
All right, so we're going to fast forward to John 18, verses 4 and 5. OG Rick?
Jesus, therefore, knowing all things that would come upon him, went forward and said to them, Whom are you seeking? They answered him, Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus said to them, I am he.
All right, so let's look at the reactions. The woman at the well, he said, I am. She got up. The disciples were coming that way. She got up, she ran, and got everybody she knew. Come back, you got to see this guy. He told me everything I did. He said, I am. He was Yahweh. It's transformational.
Yep.
Those words should be transformational. The Jews, it transformed them, but it transformed them into anger. I mean, this was blasphemy.
It's the worst transformer.
Yeah.
Michael Bay.
I'm going to hit you.
I mean, this was blasphemy.
Yeah.
Was it blasphemy when he spoke it to her? Probably.
Yeah, of course.
Of course it was. And then, oh gosh, did I leave that out?
What?
Oh, wait, hang on. Oh, I'm sorry. So, and then what OG Rick read, whom are you seeking? Jesus of Nazareth, I am he. He was in the garden.
They were
Judas
about
has
to
come up
arrest
and
him.
kissed him,
Yep.
gave him a kiss on the cheek, the betrayer's kiss. And he says, who are you looking for? Jesus, I am. It was so transformational that they fell to the ground. They were
It says it blew him
pushed.
back.
It blew him back to the
It
ground.
blew him back to the ground when he spoke it.
The same language is used when the soldiers at the rock. It's the same language, by the way. They were blown to the ground.
Yeah. Whenever we do it, I've been a part of a passion play, and they decided to put this in it. And it's so awkward when you're sitting, because we can't do it justice.
You can't blow back.
No, so they smack the wall and they like kneel down, and then they get up and they're like scratching their head like, what was that about? No, that's not what it was.
It'd be like Neo in the Matrix.
It was like, yeah, and all. That's right. That was a great imagery. Actually, it was.
And really, it was only the soldiers. Like the disciples were standing there going,
That was neat.
well, that was awesome. That was so cool. Okay. Why? Well, it harkens back to God calling himself this very name in Exodus to Moses. Exodus 3:14 says, and God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he said, thus you shall say to the children of Israel, I am has sent me to you. Wow. God was yelling, because it's in all caps in my Bible.
Mm-hmm.
I use the New King James for anybody who needed to know that. And I used it actually for the whole study, but I kid. But what do you think of this final I am statement of Jesus? Or while he was living on the earth as a human. What do you think of this? Do you consider it one of the I am statements?
I do. Oh, absolutely. You're talking about whenever he was being arrested, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
definitely.
He said it 3 times.
Yes.
Again, if he repeats himself,
Yep.
there's a purpose behind it. Again, it goes back to the way, the truth, and the life. He is likening, they would have known this word because it was a word that many of them can't write, won't say. You know, I have friends who write the G with the underscore D. They
Right,
won't write they wouldn't say Yahweh. You know, they wouldn't say it out loud. It was a very holy word. And here he was, this insurrectionist
Yeah.
who uttered the statements, putting him equal to God. I mean, this is explosive. It's explosive.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only way they could really, in their law, that's what they needed to kill him. You know, in their law, that's all they needed. Now, others saw him for who he was. And we also know that he was blinding them as he was going along doing this for his purpose. But I definitely think that you're right. I think there's an 8th, really 8th, 9th, 10th, the way that
And it gets ignored, kind of,
yeah.
because I've done several Bible studies where we've done those. And I am the door, I am the bread of life. But this I am, it should be the first one, but it's the last, it's the last thing he says,
Yes.
really. And except, what he says to Pilate and others at the cross. But he either is a lunatic, he's crazy, he's a liar, or he's the Lord. I mean, that's your choice.
And he uttered the name. This is the name that was given. And he's claiming that in his physical form. But there's going to come a time, and it already has, when he has a name that's above every other name, including that one, by the way.
It's written on his thigh.
Does that
Only he
sound
knows.
does that explosive?
That's explosive. So I did mention that we would discuss a few of the I am statements in Revelation. So no matter what you believe about Revelation, whether you believe it's future, you believe it's allegorical, spiritual, whatever, Jesus does utter some I am statements in Revelation. In Revelation chapter 1, verses 17 and 18 to John, he says, I am the first and the last, he who was, he who lives and was dead, and behold, am alive forevermore. So that's an I am statement. I am the first and the last. Then he goes in 21:6 and says the very same thing, but just in a different manner. I am the Alpha and the Omega. So if you know your Greek language, that's the first letter and the last letter. I am the A and the Z. The beginning and the end. And then he repeats it again in verse 22:13. He repeats that again in verse 22:13. And then he says, I am the root and the offspring of David, the bright and morning star. And so I think we shouldn't ignore those. Some of those are the bright and morning star. I don't understand what the root of David and offspring of David is. And the Alpha and Omega, and I get that. I was at the beginning. I'll be there at the end. I'm in the middle. I am, I was, I will be forevermore. Thoughts, comments, jokes?
I think this is a fantastic study.
No, it's
yeah.
great.
What were the disciples' favorite root vegetables?
I don't know, Rick. What were the disciples' favorite?
I am what I am.
I am what I am. Oh,
I had to wait until the end of the study to say it because we were on it.
very good. Very good.
Yeah,
Well,
you did a great job on this.
Thank you. Thank
Kudos
you
to
for being
you
a part
for
of
leading
this.
the study. I
Good
love
job.
it.
I was
Yeah.
excited. Of course, I love studying God's word,
I do
so
too.
it makes me happy to do that.
I like it when you cry. Like, that's my favorite because usually I think our spirit is like, seriously, when
No, I
she's
know,
doing
I
it,
know.
like my
It's still
spirit's
just
like
funny
right there
sentence.
with you. And I'm like, just bring it, sister. I get it.
Jesus
I really do.
takes my breath away.
Me too.
He takes my breath away. I mean, because I know what I was
Yeah,
and I know what I am.
that's right.
You like
Yeah,
what I
good
did
job.
there?
Good play on words there.
So that's all for us here at Giraffe Studios in beautiful Hendersonville, North Carolina. Thank you,
Yes.
Andy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick the Third.
I'm a turd.
The OG.
Thanks, OG.
Yeah.
And I'm Sarita. We'll see you next time on the Burrows of Berea.
Peace out.
Bye.
Eeyaw. Billy's not here to do that. Eeyaw.
Hey guys, this is Rick from the Burrows of Berea. Do you know how much blood, sweat, and tears it takes to make a podcast? None. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't cost a lot. And so if you guys don't mind, if anybody would like to give to help us with these episodes, it would be great. We'll put out even more content. And if you go to our Patreon page, just search for the Burrows of Berea, you'll get extra notes, extra episodes, and it's pretty much free. $1 gets you a lot. Thanks, guys.